Episode 4, The Great Divide. The planet loomed ahead, bathed in blue and green hues that evoked memories of home. For Commander Elena Vasquez, it was as if they were finally approaching a distant reflection of Earth, an oasis in the vast emptiness of space. The crew of Odyssey One had made first contact with the crystalline entity, and now they faced a new challenge, an Earth-like world that could hold both promise and peril. Elena stood on the observation deck, gazing at the planet below. The crew had been buzzing with excitement for days. An Earth-like atmosphere, lush vegetation, and intelligent life, the kind of discovery that every spacefarer dreamed of. But there were also strange signals, intercepted messages that hinted at conflict. Something was wrong, and it was their job to find out what. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Dr. Kim said, stepping up beside Elena. Her voice was filled with awe, but her eyes held a hint of concern. "But beauty can be deceiving." Elena nodded, her gaze still fixed on the planet. "We're not here to judge, Kim. We're here to understand. Whatever's happening down there, we'll do our best to help." Chapter 1. First Contact. The shuttle touched down in a clearing, surrounded by towering trees with blue leaves that shimmered in the sunlight. The descent had been tense, with sensors picking up unusual energy readings nearby. The crew's eyes were glued to their instruments, expecting trouble at any moment. As they stepped out, their hands were ready at their sides, prepared for the unexpected. The air was fresh, almost sweet, but beneath its tranquility was an unshakable sense of unease. Elena, Kim, and Li Wei stepped out, their boots sinking into the soft, mossy ground. The sound of distant bird-like creatures filled the air. Ahead, a delegation of the planet's inhabitants waited. There were two distinct groups, each standing apart from the other. The tension between them was almost palpable, their expressions hard and their postures rigid, ready to either speak or fight. Elena could feel the potential for conflict simmering, a powder keg that could ignite at the smallest provocation. On the left were tall, slender beings with pale, almost translucent skin and elongated limbs. Their clothing was elegant, made of flowing fabrics that seemed to change color with every movement. On the right were shorter, stockier beings with deep bronze skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the shade. Their attire was practical, adorned with symbols that appeared to denote rank or clan. Elena approached the center, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Greetings," she said, her voice amplified by the translator embedded in her suit. "We come from a distant world. We wish to learn about your people and offer our help if we can." One of the taller beings stepped forward, its voice melodic and haunting. "You come at a time of great unrest, travelers. We are the Illyrians, and we have long sought harmony with the land, but the others, the Valerians, seek only to conquer and exploit." A Valerian, his deep voice resonating with power, took a step forward. "Lies," he spat, glaring at the Illyrian representative. "We seek to survive. The Illyrians hoard resources while our people starve." Elena felt a pang in her chest. This was not just a first contact mission, this was a crisis, and they were caught in the middle. Chapter 2, The Divide. In a hastily assembled meeting tent, Elena sat across from the Illyrian leader, a being named Alith. The Illyrian's elegance was matched by a calm demeanor, but there was a hardness in Alith's eyes, a deep-seated mistrust that could not easily be bridged. "They are relentless," Alith said, his voice soft but firm. "The Valerians destroy what they do not understand. They burn our sacred groves and poison the rivers. They are driven by greed." Elena listened, her expression neutral. "And what do they need, Alith? Why do they believe they must do these things?" Alith hesitated, then looked away. "They believe they have no choice. Their lands are barren, their people hungry, but they refuse our offers of help. They seek only domination." Later, in another part of the camp, Elena met with the Valerian leader, a woman named Cora. Her eyes were fierce, her posture rigid with the weight of responsibility. "We have no choice," Cora said, her voice edged with frustration. "Our people are dying, and the Illyrians would rather watch us wither away than share their bounty. They speak of peace, but they do nothing to ease our suffering." Elena sighed, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. Both sides had their reasons, their fears, their grievances, but neither was willing to see the other's perspective. Chapter 3. A Fragile Attempt. Back aboard Odyssey One, Elena gathered her crew. The air was thick with urgency. They needed a plan, something that could break the cycle of mistrust and show both sides that there was another way. Every second felt precious, the thought of renewed conflict pushing them to find a solution before it was too late. "We need to create a space where they can talk," Elena said, her voice firm. "Somewhere neutral, where neither side feels threatened." Arjun nodded, his fingers tapping at his console. "We could use the shuttle as a meeting point. It's small, but it's neutral ground." Dr. Kim looked thoughtful. "And maybe we can use the crystal entity's music. If it spoke of harmony and unity, perhaps it can help them see what they have in common." Elena smiled. "It's worth a try. Let's make it happen." The next day, the shuttle was set up as a neutral meeting place. Elena, Kim, and Li Wei worked tirelessly, aware that failure could mean a full-scale war. They used holographic projections of the crystal entity and its music to create an atmosphere of peace and reflection, hoping to counter the volatile emotions that could so easily flare up. They double-checked the setup, knowing that even the smallest detail could mean the difference between progress and disaster. When the Illyrians and Valerians arrived, there was tension in the air. The two groups eyed each other warily, their mistrust palpable. Elena stood between them, her hands raised. "We are not here to force anything," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "We are here to listen, to understand." The crystal entity we encountered spoke of harmony, of how easily it can be shattered, but also of how it can be rebuilt. "We ask only that you listen, to each other, and to the message of the crystal." Chapter 4. The Beginning of Understanding. The music played softly, filling the shuttle with its haunting, ethereal melody. The atmosphere was tense. Elena's heartbeat matched the rhythmic pulses of the hologram. Any wrong move, any misplaced word, and this delicate balance could shatter. The Illyrians and Valerians sat across from each other, their eyes darting between the holographic projections and each other. Slowly, the tension began to ease. The music seemed to reach deep inside them, reminding them of what they had lost and what they could still rebuild. Alith was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. "We were not always enemies," he said, his eyes on the projection. "There was a time when we worked together, when our people thrived side by side." Cora looked at him, her expression softening. "I remember stories of a time when the rivers flowed through both our lands and the harvests were shared." Elena watched, her heart swelling with hope. It was a small step, but it was a step nonetheless. The music continued, and the two leaders began to speak. Tentatively at first, but with growing sincerity. They spoke of their fears, their losses, their hopes for the future. By the time the meeting ended, there was no resolution. Not yet. But there was a beginning. A fragile understanding that perhaps they could find a way forward together. Epilogue. Back on Odyssey One, Elena stood at the observation window, looking down at the planet below. The Illyrians and Valerians still had a long way to go, but they had taken the first step. And that, Elena knew, was the hardest part. Dr. Kim joined her, a smile on her face. "Think they'll make it?" Elena nodded slowly. "If they can remember what they felt today, if they can hold on to that hope, I think they will." Kim looked out at the planet, her eyes filled with wonder. "Kek, it's strange, isn't it? How different they are from us, and yet how similar." Elena smiled. "Maybe that's the lesson. No matter how far we travel, no matter how different we seem, we're all connected. We all want the same things: peace, prosperity, a future for our children." The two women stood in silence, watching as the planet slowly rotated below them. A world divided, but not beyond hope. And as long as there was hope, there was a chance for change.